From Newzroom Afrika studios in Randburg, Johannesburg, welcome to our latest edition of This Week in Politics. My name is Vuyo Mvoko, and thank you for joining us. On the show this week, President Cyril Ramaphosa fights for his political life as opposition parties continue to press him on Phala Phala. Following Wednesday's deadline for all parties in the case to file their papers, we examine some of the arguments both for and against him.
The minister wants to clean up SAPS. He wants us to help him clean up SAPS. Crime intelligence in specifically. And staying with the executive, a witness tells the Madlanga Commission that the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, whom the president put on special leave, was one of the hidden hands behind IDAC's rogue investigations. Will the president sit this one out as well?
The matters appear to be complex. Everybody agrees on that, and so we want to ensure that everybody gets the opportunity of expressing their views and their clients' views on these very important issues.
On legislative matters, we look at some salient points that were made at the Western Cape High Court during the marathon 5-day sitting this week concerning the DA and AfriForum's constitutional challenge to the Land Expropriation Act.
I've written to her, advised by my lawyers, that she must clarify those issues, and the failure to do so will go to court. It's not a threat.
We'll also look at party political dynamics, clashes and shake-ups amidst a feud between Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the woman who challenged Ramaphosa for the ANC presidency in 2017, and two senior party members she accuses of vote buying at previous elective conferences. Also this week, former President and Ramaphosa's predecessor, Jacob Zuma, also grabbed headlines for once again making dramatic changes to his leadership of the MK party, anointing his son Duduzane as the deputy leader while demoting impeached former judge John Hlophe and kicking out chairperson Nathi Mvoko. We'll also bring you updates on what other political leaders and parties and the IEC are doing as election fever grips the country ahead of the November 4 local government elections. You're watching This Week in Politics here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. The prospect of impeachment would unsettle any president. It's very dishonorable, if not the most disgraceful way of vacating the highest political office. No wonder, then, that President Cyril Ramaphosa is fighting tooth and nail to oppose an application by Parliament's Impeachment Committee Chair, Makashwile Ghana, and political parties, the ATM, the EFF, and the MKP. While the Impeachment Committee's preparatory work is ongoing, Ghana and the three parties have approached the Constitutional Court in a bid to overturn a Western Cape High Court order handed down 2 weeks ago. That ruling halted Parliament's Impeachment Committee public hearings, during which the President may be called to testify. In papers filed with the Constitutional Court on Wednesday, Ramaphosa urged the Apex Court to refuse the applicant's direct access, arguing that they bypassed the Supreme Court of Appeal and have no prospect of succeeding. Zoleka Kodashe has the details.
In about a month, the Western Cape High Court will hear President Cyril Ramaphosa's application to review and set aside the independent panel report, which found he may have violated the Constitution in relation to the 2020 theft of foreign currency from his Phala Phala farm. This is the foundational document which the Impeachment Committee will investigate the President. But the Western Cape High Court's granting of an interdate to the President has prompted parties and the committee itself to approach the Constitutional Court. The 31-member body held a meeting on Wednesday where Advocate Griffiths Madonsela was recommended for the position of evidence leader.
With regard to the two legal opinions, he indicated the one opinion was on the legal avenues available to Parliament in respect of President Ramaphosa's application for an interdict, which has been heard already on the 5th and 6th of July, and the pros and cons of opposing the interdict, not opposing the interdict, or to abide by the decision of the court. And a further opinion that he provided was on the requirement of fit and proper person, whether there's a need for the National Assembly rules to include a requirement of fit and proper for its members. He further indicated the study group brief came at a time when he was extremely busy, as he was running very high-profile trials to the country, and as a result, that his input in the opinions was minimal, and he was overseeing the junior advocates' drafts. He did not make any real inputs on his side. For this reason, he was released from the brief on 5th July 2026, since it was evident that his other commitments did not enable him to dedicate sufficient time to this. In the course of providing these opinions, he indicates that he was not privy to the merits or the factual matters underpinning the Section 89 impeachment inquiry. He only gave purely legal advice, and he further indicates in none of these matters, President Ramaphosa was not his client or did he litigate against him.
Madonsela received 9 votes, while Advocate Kate Hofmeyer obtained 7. 11 committee members abstained from voting. And with an evidence leader nominated, the ground was fertile for deliberations on the terms of reference, with the legal opinion giving the following advice.
We are proposing that the president be compelled to testify and not be given a right not to testify. Obviously, this is something the committee must consider and make a decision on as to how he thinks appropriate that an impeachment hearing takes place, whether the president should be given those rights or not. But it's our view, in the framework of our constitution, the president is elected by the National Assembly and he must account to the Assembly. He can be requested to come and explain himself as to particular charges and answer to questions put stemming from the evidence placed before the committee. I think it would be difficult in our constitutional framework to justify not having the president account.
However, members clashed when suggestions were made that the independent panel, led by retired Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo, should be quizzed on the report. This is despite a legal opinion dictating otherwise and a resolution by the committee.
As a member of this impeachment committee who was not around in the previous administration, there are a number of questions that I would like to ask the panel in regard to how they conducted their work, etc. We know that there's a review process going on. We know about the interdict, but it is my, I would argue, fundamental right as a member of this impeachment committee, to ask questions to the panel. I mean, how can we be denied? That's part of getting all of us to have an understanding as to, what actually happened, how the panel was appointed, what they did, who did they speak to, etc. There's a report.
Honorable Dagmar, before you proceed, so we resolved on that matter last week. The matter was resolved last week, and the minutes will indicate as such. So we can't revisit it.
The Constitutional Court will now consider papers from all parties in the urgent direct appeal and determine whether to grant a hearing. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Zoleka Kodashe in Johannesburg.
As Zoleka was saying there, the Constitutional Court is yet to decide whether it will grant the applicants direct access or even hear their case. Whatever happens, though, the official opposition says it can't wait to see the president eventually taking the witness stand before the impeachment committee.
We are impatient to get President Ramaphosa to come before that committee. We as a nation must remember serious crimes are being alleged to have happened on that farm. Money which is not supposed to be in his possession was on his farm. People are abducted outside of South Africa by agents of the state who are operating as his private militia. So we have a serious problem on our hands in terms of how the president has behaved of this country. We believe he violated the Constitution, his constitutional responsibilities, his oath of office. Also, by not reporting a crime that happened on his farm, he violated the Anti-Corruption Act. He violated the Constitution by involving in private business when the Constitution is very clear. As a sitting president, he's not supposed to do so. So we believe that he has a very high mountain to climb in terms of this process, and that's why he's hiding behind the judicial processes to try to delay.
Now, while Ramaphosa's lawyers were filing court papers on the Phala Phala matter, a witness was telling the Madlanga Commission that Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, whom the president put on special leave last year with full pay, was one of the hidden hands behind IDAC's rogue investigations. State advocate Drshanta Ramsamy intimated that Mchunu not only triggered IDAC's investigations into crime intelligence boss Dumisani Kumalo and other officers, but also became involved in what was kept in fact kept abreast throughout. Ramsamy alleged that Mchunu also flew a witness to the Eastern Cape to give evidence to IDAC chief investigator Dylan Perumal regarding an irregular crime intelligence tender. Perumal is, of course, now facing allegations of conducting irregular investigations and falsifying witness statements. Together with two other IDAC senior investigators, Brian Padayachi and Sunil Belachun, they have since been suspended.
Your reference, are you suggesting that at the meeting, either on the 20th or the 21st, at the minister's residence, that was when the minister and Advocate Johnson discussed Mr. Nkabinde?
I assumed it to be so because of the way Advocate Johnson was pushing for the information, even on the 23rd, and then she said she spoke to the minister, we must move ASAP. The other aspect of the 22nd of January 2025 meeting that made me alert to the fact that the meetings with the minister were common or regular was that she said, Advocate Johnson said to the team, the minister wants to clean up SAPS. He wants us to help him clean up SAPS, crime intelligence in specifically.
What do you know about the meeting at the minister's residence? The meeting between Advocate Johnson and the minister?
That it had taken place after hours, that she was left waiting for an extended period of time for the minister. She was with the Chief of Staff, Mr. Nkabinde, and at that meeting, except for the heebie-jeebies, the aspect of the minister wanting to clean up SAPS and more specifically crime intelligence was discussed.
If indeed the allegations are true, the question is whether the president will sit this one out as well. Mind you, it's a year on and 2 interim reports later. Now, speaking of allegations of executive interference in the justice system, another member of President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet took the witness stand this week, this time at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The commission is probing whether presidents and ministers, past and present, had a hand in frustrating or blocking the prosecution of apartheid-era crimes and in the non-implementation of Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations. Here's some of what Mamuloko Kubai had to say for herself for the 19 months that she has been Justice and Constitutional Development Minister.
I think in paragraph 18, I deal with the fact that I have found the policy already in place. Now, the responsibility of the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, or the minister responsible for justice as is put in the Constitution, is that you do not interfere with the work that is being done by NPA, especially on prosecution. So NPA is independent. They must deal with the issues of their own work in terms of prosecution without the interference of the minister. Section 33 of the NPA Act stipulates how the minister can request a report from NDPP, National Director of Public Prosecution, if they are concerned, but there must be a trigger for it. So you don't wake up every day as a minister and ask for report in terms of case section, what, and you want to know. That would be deemed as interference. And I'll make this example just to elaborate. When there was a public outcry in relation to the case of Omotoso versus of the rape of many young women in the Eastern Cape, there was an outcry because the presiding officer actually did reflect on the conduct of NPA. Out of that, I did a request in terms of Section 33 of the NPA Act to say, National Director, give me an account of what has happened. So the trigger for me was the outcome of the case, the public outcry, but the report or the reflection by the presiding officer of the conduct of NPA. Out of that, then I requested a report. So there's a context where the minister gets involved, but there's prescription in how the minister can actually do that oversight. So the oversight that is being envisaged by the Constitution doesn't mean minister then sits with the NPA and NDPP every day to ask for cases, to ask how this case is doing. If you do that as the minister, that will be deemed as interference. I have never made any effort nor attempted to stop the investigations or prosecution of TRC cases. I respect the NPA's independence while I fulfill my oversight role as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development in terms of Section 179(6) of the Constitution. As I explained earlier, how the briefing happened and what I was briefed upon in terms of all the other areas, the construction of scene, and for me, it made logical sense when it was explained. I have not been briefed that there was a position that there is a political interference. None of the officials actually came to me to brief me as such. And I do not have a submission that was made to me as a minister that gives such.
After the break, we'll also bring you updates on what other political leaders and parties, together with the IEC, are doing as election fever grips the country ahead of the November 4 local government elections. You're watching This Week in Politics here on Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405. Welcome back. You're watching This Week in Politics here on Newzroom Afrika Channel 405. Now, while the President and some members of his executive were attending to court and commissions of inquiry matters this week, other political players were just as busy. Former ANC President and Ramaphosa's predecessor, Jacob Zuma, also grabbed headlines for once again making dramatic changes to the leadership of his 2-year-old MK party, anointing his son Duduzane as deputy leader while demoting impeached former judge John Hlophe and kicking out chairperson Nathi Nhleko.
Following careful consultation, the President hereby relieves Mr. Nathi Nhleko of his responsibilities as national chairperson of Mkhonto Sizwe Party. This is done with immediate effect. President Zuma expresses his sincere appreciation to Comrade Nhleko for his dedication, his commitment and service to the party during his tenure. The President thanks him for his contribution to building the organization and wishes him well in his future endeavors. The President hereby also relieves Dr. John Hlophe of his responsibility as First Deputy President of the Mkhonto Sizwe Party. This is done with immediate effect. However, colleagues, Dr. John Hlophe will remain as party leader in the National Assembly. He will lead the Mkhonto Sizwe Caucus, consisting of 58 members. The President hereby appoints Mr. Duduzane Zuma as the first Deputy President of Mkhonto Sizwe Party. The President confirms that Comrade Tony Ngeni is still the party's second Deputy President. The President hereby appoints Comrade Willis Mchunu to serve as part of the Presidency Collective. The Presidency Collective plays a role in providing strategic advice, organizational guidance and support on matters requiring presidential oversight and coordination.
If my mathematics and memory serves me well, we're talking no less than 8 Secretaries General for the MK Party in the 2 years that it has been in existence. Staying with Jacob Zuma for a bit, his recent visit to India, where he met fugitive Gupta brother Ajay, has landed South Africa's High Commissioner to that country in hot water. Anil Suklal has been recalled by the government.
We confirm that High Commissioner Anik Sukla has been recalled to the headquarters for further consultations. We have also submitted the recommendations to Parliament and to the Presidency to consider a new framework for protocol and diplomatic support to former presidents and former deputy presidents during international travel. As part of this framework, the Presidency and DIRCO jointly established a mandatory disclosure mechanism requiring former presidents and deputy presidents seeking protocol and diplomatic support to provide full details of the purpose of travel, programs, activities, sources of funding, principal hosts, key engagements, and the capacity in which they will be traveling to enable an informed assessment of the appropriate level of support required and any associated reputational, political, and diplomatic or security risks that may be involved. This will help us avoid the situation where former presidents portray themselves as also representing South Africa's foreign policy, particularly when they have not been mandated by the sitting head of state.
As the minister was saying there, the government has also decided to review all protocols and diplomatic support related to former presidents and deputies during their international travels.
We received the instructions of former heads of states from the presidents that this former head of state is going to India, for example, or is going to Zimbabwe, or is going to England. Please provide diplomatic services to these former heads of state without really having a clear program of everything, including protocols of who is he going to meet, what is the trip about, is it personal, and all those details. Hence, we have now recommended that we need to review this type of privileges. They must be very clear, they must be specific, because they run a risk of former heads of state portraying themselves as representing the South African government in some places. But what do you do also when the former head of states go and clearly oppose the South African government at the expense of the South African government, like we've seen in this instance in India, where former President Zuma was clearly sending a message against the South African government? Should we still be the ones who provide these privileges for him to go and carry such a message which is clearly against the government of the Republic of South Africa? And we provide all those protocols. So there are loopholes in the system that we need to close.
Zuma's former political home, the ANC, well, he'll probably take exception to me saying that, as he still maintains that he's a member despite his expulsion. But the largest political party had its fair share of drama this week. It started after ANC-NEC member Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the woman who challenged Ramaphosa for the ANC presidency in 2017, accused 2 senior party members of being involved in vote buying at the last two ANC elective conferences. Dlamini Zuma told podcaster and former EFF MP Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi that current ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola dished out money to voting delegates in exchange for votes. Both Mbalula and Lamola have vociferously denied the allegations.
All podcasts are important. They are important, and they are mushrooming, and they are all different kinds of podcasts. And Ndlozi's podcast is very important, African Renaissance, because it brings people there who debate issues, and we appreciate that. So there's no agenda to us in relation to the podcast. The fact that ANC members and leaders avail themselves to podcast, the person who's leading the podcast and interviewing cannot be blamed. Cannot be blamed for that. It's a battle of ideas. And you can still argue that Nkosazana has got the right to express a view in the public discourse. The ANC agrees to that. But engagement in a podcast does not mean denigrating others without substance. You've got to bring the matter to the fore. You can deal with the phenomenon of money in the ANC and all of that, which is what we are grappling with, all of us now, and the dangers of that. And that is important to a political party that calls itself a revolutionary movement like the ANC. And therefore, that's not the issue. The question is it's a matter of attacking the persona. Attacking the persona of a person is not the substance. I said things one time about Nkosazana, and which I withdrew publicly, and I apologized. I said to Mfaziga JZ. It was wrong for me to say that. I apologized to the NEC. I apologized to her, because my mother in a grave will not allow me to say such things. And I was not even SG of the ANC. And how do I judge Nkosazana a track record in the struggle on the basis of his husband, Jacob Zuma? That's wrong. It showed that I'm probably uncouth, I'm not well raised. So I had to stand up and apologize to her. I couldn't have sustained that particular thing from a young man like myself to say that about a veteran of our movement, like Nkosazana. So I hold her in high regard. And therefore, but I will never allow anyone to say things about me that I did not do.
Ronald Lamola has demanded both a retraction and an apology. Failing that, he says he will exercise his legal option. But with local government elections looming, the two said their focus, for now at least, is campaigning to ensure a victory for their embattled party, which saw its worst ever electoral performance in the 2024 national and provincial elections.
I corrected this and I clarified it at the time of the 2017 conference when I heard this audio. At that time, I clarified that it's not me and I don't know who is this person and where it is coming from. So if you listen to it, as I've said, you will hear that it's not me. And she is a veteran, so it will be very painful for me to go to court against an ANC struggle veteran, but not only for the ANC and for the country as a whole. So it's also for that reason that for me a retraction will be enough. She may not even need to apologize, because I understand this is a veteran of the ANC and of the country. A retraction for me will be enough, and I think I will be ready to accept just only a retraction, even without an apology, because it is blatantly clear from the recording that it is not me.
Now, following the conclusion of interviews for mayoral candidates, Mbalula briefed journalists on Friday about the next steps, including the party's election manifesto launch, now set for August the 23rd. Newzroom Afrika's Ntokozo Khumalo has the details.
With less than 3 months until South Africans head to the polls, the ANC says its 2026 local government manifesto is built on listening. The party says thousands of residents, businesses, community organizations, and professionals have helped shape the documents which will guide its campaign for the November elections, with interviews for mayoral candidates already conducted.
We are going to announce the mayoral candidates in a week leading to the manifesto. It will happen before the 23rd. And then all our candidates who are going to be announced. I can see you are making predictions and all of that and so on. This is an ANC campaign. It's not a mayor's campaign. We have interviewed people based on our criteria. We want people who are able to run municipalities.
Secretary General Fikile Mbalula also defended the party's decision to focus on experienced leaders capable of managing complex municipalities, saying local government requires competence, not popularity. One notable absentee from the meeting was former cabinet minister and ANC veteran Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Mbalula addressed allegations made by Dlamini Zuma that he paid delegates during the ANC's Nasrec conference campaign. He rejected the claims, saying he had instructed his lawyers to pursue legal action against those making the allegations if she cannot back up her claims.
In no time, hawks will be on my neck. In no time, somebody will be opening a case at police station like they did with Phala Phala. Now I must produce notes that I don't have. I mean, I didn't have money that I distributed to delegates. And if there are such people who make such allegations, let them come to court and prove that I distributed money in a clinic nogal.
Unlike previous elections, ANC leaders say this manifesto is also informed by a policy review of municipalities under its control. The party says it has taken stock of governance failures, aging infrastructure, service delivery challenges, and funding pressures to develop more practical commitments for the next 5 years.
Then that we're able to assess what could have been inherent systemic internal administrative and political challenges and difficulties, which needed a policy update, a policy review. That process is about to be concluded, and unavoidably, there will be no many other excuses beyond this period for those of our deployees in government who will come and say, we were unable to deliver services, to do this and that because of certain constraints from a policy point of view.
The review comes as many municipalities continue to battle financial strain, unreliable service delivery, and infrastructure backlogs. The ANC insists stronger municipal governance, capable leadership, and a review of funding models will be key to improving local government performance. Mbalula also dismissed speculation that the postponement of the manifesto launch was linked to financial constraints. He says the launch was moved to allow President Cyril Ramaphosa to attend the SADC summit and to give the party more time to engage communities. The ANC says President Cyril Ramaphosa will officially launch the manifesto on the 23rd of August before the document is taken to communities across the country ahead of the local government elections on the 4th of November. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Dogozo Kumalo in Boksburg.
Another former liberation movement also updated the media on its election plans this week. The Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, announced that its prodigal son and former Secretary General Thami Kaplaki had defected back to it after years in the ANC and will stand as their mayoral candidate for the hotly contested city of Joburg. Larry Faisal Vari will contest the city of Cape Town. Eddie Mfulwane in Tshwane, Jackie Seroke for Ekurhuleni, Basi Kamana in Nelson Mandela Bay, and Sifiso Xaba in eThekwini.
We believe that as a PAC, we have a superior logic. Therefore, there's no need to fear any other. We don't fear Freedom Front Plus, we don't fear DA, we don't fear them collectively because we believe that we've got superior logic. Now, the disputes in the GNU have always been there. You would recall that there was a dispute on VAT and the budget. There was a dispute on Phala Act. People wanted to make noise about it. There were also many other disputes. We believe that even this one, that the PAC is going to bring, the new legislation, is going to create a dispute in the GNU.
After the break, our panel of analysts tries to make sense of this week's political developments. Don't go away. To help us make sense of the week's political stories, I'm joined now on the line by analysts Professor Beki Mngomezulu and Dr. Ongama Mdimka. Let me thank both of you for agreeing to come on. Well, quite an eventful week in politics in South Africa. Not that there's ever a dull moment. But let's start, if I may, with the president again approaching the courts and, of course, fighting back. This is, Professor Mngomezulu, the fight of his political life, isn't it?
Good evening, Vuyo. Good evening to my colleague, Dr. Mdimka, and good evening to your viewers. It's very interesting to see what the president is doing, because not so long ago, you heard that whenever people use the legal route to fight battles, they are accused of implementing Stalingrad tactics. Then you wonder what is happening now, because the organizations that usually make the loudest noise are as silent as a grave. So don't know what could have happened there. But legally, the president is right in exhausting all the possibilities. He's entitled to do that. The fact that he's a president is neither here nor there. He's a South African and then is protected by the Constitution. But politically, what he's doing is denting the image, not just of himself as the president of the party or the president of the country, but it also dents the image of all that he stood for when he assumed this office, saying that he was going to be Russia's president, doing everything by the book. So all of that is falling out of the window. So we'll just wait and see how people will react to that. Legally is right, politically is wrong.
Dr. Mdimka, it doesn't get worse than being impeached as a head of state, does it?
Yeah, so this is a very important point. In parliamentary systems, presidents don't have to lose office on the basis of, the serious misconduct or whatever the case may be that is proven, because presidents get voted from parliament. So unlike a presidential system, they can lose office when they're voted out, when MPs lose their confidence. So the question is, I can understand what my colleague is saying, but the question is, if the MPs are genuine that there's a need to remove the president and do so urgently because his further stay in office may harm, the country, why has there not been the more feasible and quicker process of a motion of no confidence? If the primary issue was to make sure that you remove the president from office because his further stay may harm. Once you trigger a process that's got legal implications, unfortunately, every person has a right to exhaust legal options. So for me, it doesn't help when you have options out there as MPs to make the president accountable. You choose the one that has got higher requirements in terms of proving that the president has a case of misconduct. And then we complain when the president then, uses the same legal rights that are there. Because remember, this is not the only way that you remove a sitting president. And if I understand the legalities well, impeachment can even happen because that then deals with rights further as former head of state, you know. So for me, if the issue was accountability, there is a way that MPs can actually undertake right now that does not include having to question the president for wanting to use his rights to defend himself in the legal processes.
Staying with matters involving the president and his executive, Prof, once again, damning allegations coming out of the Madlanga Commission through that witness, Ms. Ramsamy, implicating the, or not suspended, the minister, let's get this terminology right, the minister on leave, Senzo Mchunu, which, if they are indeed true, do they require the president to wait or to sit it out as he has done over the past year and 2 interim reports later?
Vuyo, what is emerging from the Madlanga Commission is a bit concerning on many fronts. First of all,
Prof's line has just frozen. Can I extend that very same question to you, Dr. Mtimka?
I think the president needs to come clean on the nature of his relationship with former Minister Senzo Mchunu, because there is significant evidence that's come from the commission that shows that Minister Mchunu, was involved in a process of no less than defeating the ends of justice, whether willfully or not. Because I think for me, it's become very clear that there was a very clear good and bad side in these police wars or intelligence wars that are taking place. And the evidence that's been corroborated by more than one witness suggests that there is enough grounds to remove the political head of the police. And remember, Vuyo, in order to remove him from office, the information that we have is sufficient to say the minister should actually lose his role as things stand.
Prof, I don't know if you agree with Dr. Mtimka, but I want you to add to whatever you were going to say, because even if, let's just say, or give the president and Minister Mchunu the benefit of the doubt here, is there no argument to be made that even if, let's say he was to be, there would be, at the very least, no evidence, suggesting wrongdoing. Would it be prudent for him to be returned to that position if he was to return to the executive? Well, it still is, technically. But would it be prudent?
No, not at all, Vuyo. To protect his own integrity and to protect the integrity of Parliament and the integrity of the President. Remember that Section 84F of the Section 84E of the Constitution gives the President the right to appoint, and then Section 91 gives him the right to appoint ministers and delegates what they must do. Section 93 is clear that deputy ministers are appointed by him, and he can go on to appoint even 2 people who are not necessarily in Parliament. So that is clear. In this case, the President had 2 options. One was to say, because there are these allegations leveled against you, they've not been proven right, but to protect your image, the image of the office that I hold as the president, I'm relieving you of your duties. That will be within the confines of the law. But then the other thing now, given the revelations that have been happening at the Madlanga Commission, I agree with my colleague that there is sufficient evidence the president could use to then take a decision that this special leave is now chained to recusing him of his responsibilities to protect the image of Parliament, the image of the President, and in fact the image of Senzo Mchunu himself.
A quick break. After the break, we'll of course conclude this conversation with my panel, but also bring you one or two other election-related matters. You're watching This Week in Politics, and I have with me analyst Professor Beki Mngomezulu and Dr. Ongam Mtimka, trying to make sense of this week's leading political stories. I want to change tack a bit and move on to some of the election issues that we have seen, but also some people would call it shenanigans that we've seen. Starting with, if I'm former President Jacob Zuma making those sweeping changes to the party's leadership structure, and you will recall, installing getting his son to be the first deputy president, and getting rid of Nathi Nhleko as the national chairperson, demoting John Hlophe as the deputy president a week after he had made changes again by adding more people and creating a new superstructure that he said was now going to run the affairs of the party. What do we make of this, or do we just shrug our shoulders and say, it's Msholozi again? Prof?
It depends on the angle one wants to take. If we were to look at it from the side of the MK party leadership, you would say that they are restructuring themselves on the eve of an election, in which case then it makes sense for them to do what they are doing. But then looking at it from the other angle, I would say that these changes, rapid changes that are happening, lead to the conclusion that there is no political stability, which then might then sway voters to other political parties. So basically, it depends on the point that one wants to emphasize. As for Dr. Zuma being the first deputy president, some would say that for as long as he's a member of the party in good standing, he qualifies to be given any responsibility without looking at him as the son of the president. But then if you want to push the narrative that the party is crowded by people of the same family, then in that case we'll argue and say that indeed by bringing Dr. Zuma in, then it means that you are making it a family issue. So it just depends on the person looking at the issue, and then of course the angle one decides to emphasize over the other.
Dr. Mtimka, 8 Secretaries General in 2 years, but then again, knowing former President Jacob Zuma, do people who follow him necessarily care about such things?
I must say, you've hit me under belt the way you're asking that question from the perspective of his followers. That's an interesting one, Vuyo. So maybe let me start where I thought I would have an opportunity to say first. We would be down on our probably 100th representative of the MK party in the government of national unity by now, if it had become part of the government. And that's not how you want to build organizations or you want to build government, because stability is important. But since you asked me a higher grade question about whether his supporters care, I think that many of them see President Zuma to be a person who, is very bold and decisive in making changes that he wants, and he does so in ways that are defined by him making sense only to him, in the very way that dictators, on one hand, or people who are taskmasters do when they feel like they are, people that they are deploying are not delivering. But I think that it's in the former for me that the president doesn't seem to want Mkhonto Wesizwe to grow beyond, the founder syndrome or the one of the founder syndrome, which is rule according to what the founder wants, as opposed to put people in positions and then allow them to give, as they play their roles as defined by the Constitution, allow them to build the party and therefore create an organization that becomes predictable.
Let me bully you here, and we also run out of time, and I'm going to get into trouble with the people behind me. Very quickly, 10 seconds each. I'll need to sneak this one in. What are we to make, Dr. Mtimka, of the tiff between Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Ronald Lamola, and Fikile Mbalula?
The reality of the matter, they themselves know that the details may be sketchy and the attribution of who actually was involved moving money around in Nazareth is sketchy. But the fact of the matter, this is vintage ANC politics. Money moves around in conferences. I hope they find one another, but this is, she's revealed what happens in the ANC.
Prof?
Vuyo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Prof. Your thoughts, very briefly?
No, I agree with Dr. Mtimka. Let's first start by saying that buying votes is not only a South African issue, it's a global issue, and the ANC cannot be exempted from that. They know it as much as we all do. I was talking to some people yesterday. One of them, in fact, confirmed that he got 20,000 rand. It's just one individual. There are quite too many. So the onus, of course, will be on Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma to prove it. But the reality, as Dr. Mtimka is saying, is that money does exchange hands, not just at a national conference. It starts at a branch level. So that is a fact.
Professor Mngomezulu, Dr. Mtimka, let me thank both of you for your time and insights. Really appreciate it, as usual.
Thank you.
To this now, legal proceedings challenging South Africa's controversial Expropriation Act have been adjourned to later this year. The Western Cape High Court spent 5 days hearing 4 applications by different organizations, including the DA and AfriForum, challenging the parts of the Act. We'll leave you with a bite from one of the judges who have presiding over the matter. And with that, it's a goodbye from me for today and for this week.
And I suspect that's what that just and equitable wants us to be able to do, is to understand that there's this tension between law and justice, but it requires a reconciliation between the very values in the Constitution, but more importantly, as it's so clearly set out in the Act, just and equitable. So I'll hold my peace if I simply just share that thought with you about how difficult and complex this issue is. But the same piece of land may be subject to successive court challenges, theoretically, because it might not be just and equitable today, but in 2 years' time they might try again on a just and equitable, and then there'll be a further challenge. But that's the uncertainty of it.